How did I start reading? Well, the biggest influence that got me started reading was probably my mom. Like I said before, she used to read to me every night, and she always had the best books. And my all-time favorite growing up definitely had to be Bear Shadow and Goodnight Moon. This series was my all-time favorite, and she read it to me every single night, and I never got tired of it. But then I started growing up, and I started wanting to learn about things, and I got really curious. And so she gave me the very first chapter book that I'd ever got, and it was called The Great Big Book of Tell Me Why. And it's answered everything that I always annoyed her with, questions like, why is the sky blue? What is wool? What is milk? What is foil made out of? All the dumb stuff that kids always ask. That was me. So she got me that so I would finally shut up. Then I started getting mature, and I started wanting to learn things, not necessarily just curiosity, but now I actually wanted to learn. So she got me into reading nonfiction, and this is the book I had when I was about, I want to say 9, 8 years old, called The Graveyards of the Dinosaurs. And this has been my all-time favorite nonfiction book that I've ever read, just because of the cool pictures. And then going into 5th grade, starting to go into middle school, I started reading bigger books and started reading things that really interested me. Like, I was really into animals, and I still am. And so this was my only book that's ever actually made me cry, is Where the Red Fern Grows. Pretty good book. You should read it and, watch the movie. Another thing that really helped influence me was my imagination. I've always had a really vivid imagination, and one that really piqued my interest it's called The Pushcart War, and it's basically about pushcart peddlers in New York City taking on the taxi cabs and 18-wheelers, and this was definitely one of the funniest books that I read growing up. And then going into high school is when I really started getting into serious books, I guess, is when I finally started to mature. And this was the first book I read going into high school. It's a really big book. It's by Stephen King. It's called Under the Dome. It's been out for a couple of years, but it's a pretty good book. It's a lot of pages. It's bigger than my Bible, so it's a pretty big book. And then this year, when I got into English, and I actually really had to start pushing myself to think, and I started having to learn literary techniques and stuff that I'm never going to use for the rest of my life. Miss Beach, thank you. This is the book that I read this year, and it's been my goal this year to analyze this book, The Divine Comedy by Dante. And the only reason I really actually started reading it was because the video game that came out, Dante's Inferno. And I actually got really into the book because it covers a lot of questions that I have about, like, God and religion and afterlife and stuff like that. So I think through the years, the biggest thing was my mom pushing me to read, pushing me to grow up. All the lessons that she taught me, it all paid off in the end, and now I can read stuff like this. But every once in a while, I still like to slip and read little kids' books, like Sydney and Norman, A Tale of Two Piggies. Thank you.